Hello everyone and welcome back to Sunshine Speedway. As you can tell, I've been busy in the past couple of weeks. Instead of just building racetracks and tuning cars, I've been tending to my newborn son, Oliver. He's just 2 weeks old, but already I think there's a bit of a racer in him. We'll see. One day I hope he enjoys this hobby as much as I do. In this video, I wanted to address some Facebook comments that I've seen where guys are buying new track sets and they're looking for ideas on track design and they want to know how much track they can fit on a certain size table, or there's guys who have track designs drawn up on software and they want to know what other people think. I'm going to just share some comments of how I got to where I am today with this track layout and this design, and I want to kind of go through all the little details of the scenery just to kind of show how I did things. I know everyone's got different tastes and different ways of finishing their product, and ultimately the track is yours. However you wish to finish it, that's entirely up to you. I had some folks over on the weekend to do some racing, and with all the updates that I've done, everyone was really impressed, and it really feels good to be able to share my work with others, and I'm sure that goes for everyone out there as well. On top of going through the history of how this track came to be, I want to just quickly review some changes that I've made, some new additions, scenery upgrades, things like that. Just want to give everyone a track tour 2.0, as you would call it. A quick comparison of what the track looks like now versus what it looked like a few months ago. So without further ado, and while this guy is still asleep, let's get started on it. So as everyone knows, a great layout starts with a great track. Ultimately, you have to start somewhere, and for me, coming from the RC world, I started from scratch in slot cars. And I started with this set, the Carrera GT Race Battle. It has a length of 7.3 meters or 24 feet. And no slot car track is complete without a table surface. With the cost of lumber at the time of me getting into slot cars, ping pong tables were the cheapest lumber you could buy, and they just so happened to come with legs. But it wasn't long before a 5-foot by 9-foot table was just not enough, so I found 2 ping pong tables. So I'm running some laps on this layout. It was great, but ultimately it took up my entire garage, so I had to find a way to free up some space. And I came up with this design. Now my plan with this design was to push it as far to the wall as I could, and after that was complete, this is what it looked like. This track had its perks, however there was some downfalls. The one thing I didn't like was the pit lane being so far away from the start-finish straight. So ultimately I tried to find a way to move the pit lane to where I wanted it to be, closer to the start-finish straight, and I had to get rid of this little hump sticking out in the middle of the garage. So with my 2 5x9 sheets of ping pong tables, I decided to go for a 5x18 layout. And this was my first initial layout. Although it was nice to have the linear footage of track on such a small footprint, it just felt too tight with too much going on, and ultimately I was concerned there wouldn't be enough room for scenery. So I changed my design to this. This is essentially my complete finished layout as you see it in the videos. It still allowed me to run the 18-foot long straight that I wanted, but it also has some smaller technical sections where you can still pick up a little bit of speed, but ultimately you still need to be cautious on many of these corners. So initially I left the track flat as much as I could, and as you can see I added a little chicane by the second U-turn just to allow me to run this track a little bit flatter while I got used to it. As I got more used to the track and ultimately started to like the layout, this is when I decided to start adding some elevation aspects to see if I could better the drivability of the track. So in this clip here, I've given this turn a bit of an elevation rise. And as you'll note, there is a wooden board underneath the track that sticks out about 1/2 inch. I did this with the intention of using it to fasten scenery material to. I wasn't sure if I was going to go the full polystyrene method in layers like some people do, or if I was going to do spray foam. All I knew is I needed something to fasten it to so that I could pull the track up and have some sort of general track layout left behind. So in this shot here, I'm illustrating where I've pinned the wooden board down to the ping pong table surface. And then on the far side, closest to the photo edge, I've actually shimmed it with some pieces of polystyrene and wood to give this corner a bit of camber. This is going to be the highest speed turn in the entire track, so I wanted to give the cars a better chance of keeping it on all 4 tires as they're coming around this turn. So with the left-hand side of the track kind of set up, now I wanted to focus on the right-hand side. Unlike the left side where the far part of the track is lower than the inside, I wanted to make this side opposite. So I made the last turn towards the start-finish straight elevated so you have a better viewpoint of the car as it's coming down the 18-foot straight. I knew this would provide me a reasonable space to do some sort of concrete wall and a couple of grassy knolls in the gaps where the track is. And after many laps of driving with this temporary elevated setup, it was only a matter of time before the spray foam came out. Now I didn't document how I laid the spray foam down, but if I were to share a tip with you, it would be to pencil mark your track on that wooden underlay and pull the track off while you do your spray foam. It's far easier to cut the spray foam off of the wooden underlay than it is to scrape it off of your track. I didn't make this mistake, but it's definitely one that I would have expected to happen had I done it that way. So the way that I did all this spray foam ultimately was I just made a cardboard barrier by stapling it to the track surface a couple millimeters away from where the track pencil line was. Run your spray foam and let it cure for a couple of hours, maybe even a day, to be on the safe side. And if you grab a bread knife, which is much longer than a standard knife, and the serrated part really helps, and just start chiseling away. You will have to test fit the track from time to time to make sure that you have enough space for the track itself. I knew once I decided to go the spray foam method that I was going to use some sort of astroturf for my grass, so I had to leave a couple extra millimeters just to make sure that the track wasn't pinched between one layer of astroturf and the other. And here you can see I took that chicane out. I wanted this bridge section to be kind of the second semi-long straightaway where you can still pick up a bit of speed. However, with that bridge section being straightened out, you can see that this section of this track here is a little bit difficult to marshal because of the track laying right over top of it. I made sure to leave enough room so you could still get your hands under there. So when it was time to lay down the AstroTurf, basically all I did was I stapled the AstroTurf to the wooden underlay where this purple line is shown, and I just ran hot glue over top of the spray foam and pinned the AstroTurf down until it had cured. And that was it. Easy peasy. Same story here. Just a quick couple staples along the purple line to make sure that the AstroTurf doesn't move. And again, just throw down some hot glue over top of the spray foam, pin it down until it cools, and you're set. After I got all the AstroTurf in, I ran this track for many weeks just to see if there was any changes that I wanted to make. Ultimately, I liked the way the layout felt. I didn't foresee any major changes that I wanted to make, so it got to the point where it was time to solidify some of the scenery. However, there was one thing that drove me crazy about this layout, and it was the placement of my charging controllers. I just didn't like the fact that they were in the visible way of this bridge as it comes down the hill into the right-hand side of the track layout. Now, the placement of these controllers was handy in the sense that it covered up the weirdness that was happening underneath with my pit garages, but it came to the decision that it was time to get rid of both and just put generic grass scenery underneath. This decision came roughly around the same time that Racetrack Scenics came out with their bridge system. After a couple of days of painting and measuring and tweaking, the setup looked like this. So now that I had a steady foothold on the scenery and the bridge system was complete, I had to install these lights that I had been hanging on to for about a year and a half. I got the idea for these lights from a YouTube channel called Garage Maker Guy. I liked the way that they angled towards the track and had a stainless steel rod elevating them from the track surface. So I built 20 of these things for myself. Overall, I think they look pretty good even when they're not lit. As you can see here, it's just a USB port that has a micro-sized USB light, and I just 3D printed a little housing that fits over top of it. And the wiring that comes through is just 2 wires from a Cat6 cable that I've soldered onto the USB port. To get all my lights wired, I have a 5 volt 3 amp power supply wired into a toggle switch in series with my positive and negative terminal blocks under the track surface. And just a simple flick of the switch operates the lights, as you can see here. And hey, lights are meant to be used at night, right? There we go. Doesn't that look good? I found some USB powered strip lights at Princess Auto and found a home for them underneath the start finish straight and underneath the bridge where the first hairpin is. And wired in some Christmas lights to illuminate my channel logo billboard. I think one of my favorite parts of the track is this hairpin turn with all the overgrown foliage and the lights that illuminate this corner. There is some track parts that definitely need some light fixtures here. The second to last corner needs a few light fixtures where I've shown them here just to illuminate this segment of the track. I think the penultimate corner could also afford one extra fixture in this location. The hairpin after turn 1 could also afford a bit of lighting as well in these locations. Doesn't that underbridge lighting look so cool? I'm trying to find a lighting solution to illuminate the 18-foot straight as well, but I'm still working on that idea. So just to illustrate how I did this wiring, basically the 2 wires coming from each light fixture, I drilled through the table surface and ran through a wire loom and then connected it to a terminal block. The wire loom itself is just screwed to the bottom of the ping pong table every couple of feet. If you anchor it in one spot, you can stretch it as much as you need to so that it's nice and taut and doesn't sag before you put the next screw in. Here I've got those fancy color changing LEDs drilled through the ping pong table surface and wired to a 6-post terminal block, where I've extended the wiring from the controller into the terminal blocks as well. If you have any questions regarding how to wire up lights, just send me a message in the comments below. So getting away from the lighting, I just wanted to highlight some other things that I had finished that I was pretty happy with. Starting with this fence that I built out of coffee stir sticks. This was a fairly easy task. Basically, I just cut the stir sticks at different lengths and kind of lined them up in a way that I thought looked pretty good. And then I fastened them together with other stir sticks on the far side of the track. And then this other fence, I lined up the curved edges of the stir sticks in kind of a sloping manner. And at the end of the stir stick fence, I'm just going to put a tire wall to kind of close in this area. If you guys are looking for materials that look like this shrubbery, just go to your local craft store and find some deer moss product that looks like this. I found this other bag of stuff here that I plan on making some trees out of at some point. I'm looking forward to that. So that just about wraps up what changes have been made to Sunshine Speedway. Overall, I'm very happy with the work that I put into this. It feels like it's taken months and months to just make these decisions and actually implement all the changes on track. I have plans to remove all this outer catch fence using the catch fence supplied by Slot Track Scenics. And I believe I have a billboard on the shopping list that's going to land right here. Right where that martini sign is. It might replace that sign. We'll probably keep the Martini logo, but we'll just make it bigger so that it's more fitting with the billboard that shows up. And I have another billboard that I'm probably going to place here. I'm not sure if it's going to be an inner type or an outer type, but it's going to fit in that zone there. One thing I do find when you're in this outer lane here, as you're coming around this bend, depending on how much speed you carry, you kind of tail whip into that wooden fence, but also into these 3D printed tires, which makes kind of a big clacking sound on some cars. So I do have some rubberized tires right there, but I might take out the next two, rubberize them, and then I'm going to build a tire wall there as well, just to kind of hide the transition between the plastic track and the grass. To complete the additions to this area, I'm going to put some lights probably the closest as I can there, maybe halfway, and then one more probably right here somewhere, just so that this track section is a little bit more lit than it already is. I do like these two signs here, but I'm not a big fan of their placement and how one's crooked and the other one doesn't look, so I'm going to pull those out and probably put something larger from Slot Track Scenics in that zone as well. I'm trying to find a solution to light this area here so that it shines inward. That way it's not blinding the drivers as they're coming down the straight. Still looking into what options I have for that. Worst case, what I'll probably do is just put a couple more light standards here just along the pit wall fence facing inwards. I haven't fully completed this beam here. As you can see, these Slot Track Scenic beams are just resting on this dowel on both sides. My plan is to pull this dowel out and maybe make something that looks a little bit more fitting for both sides of that support structure. This track is spanned about maybe 3-4 feet, so this is doing quite well to hold all that up. And as you can see, it's actually 3 pieces that I've glued together, painted, so it's actually quite strong. As for this billboard, as you can see, it's just a standard elevated track support structure that I've just glued a little Carrera Digital 132 logo to. I'm not really sure if I'm going to keep it here. I was contemplating gluing it in that back corner there, but right now it's handy because it stores 2 cars and then you can put one underneath if you really want to. This catch fence is probably going to stay. As you can see, we've got a couple blowouts with some cars that have gone a little bit too fast down this 18-foot long straight. I do like this catch fence in this area because it's flexible. I don't know if I'll put the Slot Track Scenic stuff here. It's a little more rigid, as you can tell. It does have some flex depending on, how loose you glue it into place. But ultimately this stuff looks good, and having that flexibility really prevents the cars from getting damaged as they're ripping right down the straightaway here. And to kind of finish things off on this bridge, I have ordered a couple more pieces to take this nice aluminum looking catch fence guardrail to this corner. I like to get rid of all this. I tend to find that when you're coming up this hill on this outside lane, wings and bumpers tend to catch on these plastic supports a little bit, so I'm getting rid of those, and this will ultimately lead to a much smoother look and hopefully a smoother drive as well. On the Rolex corner here, I've got these 2 billboards that are ultimately going to get demoed in place of a much larger Slot Track Scenic billboard. I'll probably reuse those 2 logos somewhere. They might get glued to the inside of this stone wall, but I think this one here is going to have to be a lot larger to accommodate the scale of those billboards that they make.
So to close this video out, I just wanted to talk about some other things that I had on the go that are related to the track, but not necessarily on the track itself. If you're looking for a solution for hanging your slot car grabbing tools, these little hangers are just from the dollar store. I think they came in a pack of 5. And I just have them screwed to the side of the ping pong table. And if you're looking for a way to hide the underbelly of your track, these 3-foot by 5-foot flags are straight from Amazon. I think they were maybe $20 or $30 a piece. It's a lot cheaper than buying fabric with checker flag patterns, in my opinion. With these Carrera lids, I found that the boxes were just too big. So I always toss away the base of it, but I keep the top side. And I 3D printed these little brackets that you can actually screw to the wall. And there's a little notch underneath where the top of the case tucks in, and just the weight of the object in the tray keeps it stationary on the wall. As you can see here, I've got about 12 of these things mounted to the wall and various things stored inside of them. Works pretty good. And speaking of 3D printing, I found this design online, but I modified the little medallion that fits inside the top section here to be more specific with a classification of car rather than just the first, second, third place. As you can see here, there's a nice little part that tops off the whole project. Overall, I'm pretty happy with them. As most of you know, a slot car track is not complete without a tire sander. I must thank Greg Gobb for producing this device and making it free to print. As you can see, I've been busy with the tire sander, so this thing is definitely a hit in my shop. Big thumbs up for this tire sander. A while ago, I saw someone on Facebook that had made a tire cleaning / sanding machine, so I thought I'd give it a go and design my own. I've went with the lint roller design, as you can just quickly peel off a layer once it gets dirty, and you got a fresh one underneath. It works pretty good. I may readjust the design just to make it a little bit more refined in the future. Some of you may have seen on Facebook this little podium stand that I designed on Tinkercad. This is my first prototype. It's definitely not perfect. As you can see here, the classification chips just have a little French cleat, and it just drops right into this little pocket. This little creation is probably the best thing that I've come up with. I found 2 items on Thingiverse that I really liked, and I thought that it would be a great idea to merge the 2 of them together. The first thing being this control base that's independent of the track piece, and the second thing is this modified controller charging base. Basically, I just merged the 2 pieces together in Tinkercad and made a little wireway that joins the 2 together. Once it was printed, I just took the wiring harness out of the stock Carrera charging base and wired it into the parts that I had printed. And once it was complete, I put it on this little shelf with a power supply, and I hook it up to a timer so it gets charged 2 times a day for 30 minutes. That way I never have to worry about dead controllers. And the last thing, I just wanted to show how I'd made this slot car storage display. It's in a bit of disarray at the moment. As you can see here, it's just an IKEA shelf that's been screwed to a piece of wood that's been painted white, and I took a table saw and just notched the top and bottom of the IKEA shelf, and then I've got some 1/8-inch thick acrylic sheets that just slide back and forth, and there's the odd piece that has a finger grab built into it as well. It's nothing too crazy, but it works well. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and leave any comments you wish below. I really enjoy hearing from you all, and I try my best to reply to everyone's comments as well. That wraps up this episode. We will see you next in episode 11. On top of finishing the track in 2023, one of the goals I had was to have a 6-driver race, and I finally achieved that the other week. Although it was absolute chaos, it was a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to doing it again. Happy racing, everyone. Take care.
Sector 1! Oh, we got a dead car. Pink car. In the back here, just not on the truck. Oh, what? There's a little dead spot. I just gotta give it a bump.
Oh, because it stopped in a dead zone. Yeah.
Okay. You guys call, count it out.
1, 2,